Hello, this is Lisa Shea, and these instructions are for making an origami window mobile. Cranes, as I'm showing here in my example, or when I do my video demonstration, I'll be making them out of frogs. So you need a dowel, which you can get at a craft store, 7 little origamis that you make of any shape that you want, some thread, you're going to need some beads, one for each of your little origami shapes, and you're going to need 7 pieces of thread. The center one's going to be 8 inches long, the two next longer ones are going to be 6 inches long, and then the 4 remaining ones are going to be 4 inches long. So we're going to start with the longest one, and we're going to put a bead on that and tie that into a knot. We actually tie double knots on these. The purpose of the bead is to keep the origami from sliding off the bottom of the thread and just having the thread pull through the shape. So the bead is a holding object to keep the origami on the thread. Now we're going to slide the free end of the thread through the eye of the needle. So you're going to send both sides of the doubled up thread through. Now we're going to stick the needle through the center of the origami. If this was a crane, you would send it through the top of the spine, but for any other shape you send it through the center. And now you're going to do a slip knot. That's where you fold the thread over in half to form 2 loops, and you put the dowel through those 2 loops. A slip knot is one of the most basic forms of knots, and that gets your frog connected to the dowel. Now next we're going to use one of the shortest pieces of thread, and again we're going to put a bead through it. So the pattern we're forming here is long, short, medium, short, long on either side of the center frog. You can do all sorts of different kinds of patterns if you want. Of course, you can do it all the same length, or you can do it long on the edges and short in the middle, or long on the middle and short on the edges, whatever you want. I tend to do them in a sawtooth pattern so that you have the longest one in the middle, and then short ones on either side, and then a medium one, and then a short one on the ends. But it's up to you. So once again, we put a bead on a thread. We send one end of the thread through the needle, and we send the needle through the center of our origami shape. Once we get it through, oops, and we put it back on. You'll find when you're making mobiles that you have to be a little patient because the thread pieces tend to slide and the origami pieces tend to slide, so it'll take you a little while to get the mobile straightened out. But that's okay, it's a beautiful end result. So now we get the thread through the center of the origami. We fold the thread over in half to make the slip knot. And now we put this on the edge of the dowel to move it over next to its partner. And now we work on the other side. Again, we put the bead on the thread. We tie the thread at the other end. So cranes work really well for these mobiles because the crane is a symmetrical object. It can hang and spin in any direction and it still looks like a crane. When you try to do something like these frogs, which have a front and a back, it's a little less good for a mobile because if you happen to look at it from the bottom side, then it doesn't look quite like a frog. But it of course depends on your personal preferences, what other kind of shapes appeal to you greatly. It's just good to keep in mind that, for example, a butterfly has a very distinct front and a back, and the front of a butterfly is pretty and the back shows all of the folded over edges. So there's some shapes that don't work exceptionally well for a mobile, but if you can put it perhaps against a window or some other flat surface, you can orient the different shapes so that they're all pointing in a forward direction. Put the needle through the center of the origami. We're going to do a slip knot for the top of the thread, fold it over in half, make 2 loops, and now we slide this on the other end of the mobile. So right now we have a long frog in the center and then 2 little short frogs on either side of it. And now we're going to put a medium length frog on either side of those 2 frogs. So we'll get one of the medium length threads. We'll put it through the center of the bead, I happen to be using malachite beads here, which is a type of green gemstone. Part of the beauty of doing these kinds of origami mobiles is you can use all sorts of different gemstones to match whatever you're doing. So if you're doing a Valentine's Day mobile, you can use pink rose quartz. If you're doing a Christmas mobile, then you can use red and green beads. So you can have it match the season. It's fun to make different mobiles for different times of year, so you can have springtime colors for the spring and then autumn colors for the fall. So don't restrict yourself just to making one mobile and then having that all around all the time. You might as well make different mobiles and switch them out so that they're always fresh and new. So now we've got one of the medium length frogs on the string. If you enjoy frogs, frogs are a fairly basic shape, and I do have a video explaining how to make a frog. And they are very cute. I happen to have googly eyes on these to make them look more frog-like, but you can of course make them without the googly eyes. So now we're doing the other medium length string, which is going to go on the other side of our window mobile. So we get the two ends of the thread to match up. We tie them in a double knot. You can get the dowels at pretty much any craft store. Craft stores love to sell dowels for all sorts of different projects, and they're fairly cheap. And of course you can get them at a wood store as well. They tend to be a little more expensive there. Send the free end of the thread through the needle. You put the thread through the center of your little frog. And put the thread into a slip knot. When you are finished with your mobile, you'll slide the little frogs a little left and a little right until they balance the way that you want them to, and then you'll put a little dab of super glue onto the top of each spot to keep the thread pieces where you want them to stay. You can use Elmer's glue or any other glue. I just happen to use super glue, but whatever kind of glue you want. The point is so that the threads don't come sliding off the dowel at some point in the future. So we're going to take one of the last pieces of thread, put it through the center bead, tie it into a double knot. Slide it down to the other side. Put the doubled up thread through the eye of the needle. Send the needle through the center of the frog and pull the threads through. Now we're going to fold the thread over in half to make a slip knot. Fold the doubled loops over the end of the dowel. So now we have 6 frogs on our dowel, and we are on the very last thread and the very last frog. So we put the bead on the thread, tie the thread in half, the paper used for these frogs is square paper. That makes a nice small size for a window dowel. You can of course hand cut paper to any size you want, but if you buy it commercially in a store, then the traditional small size that they have is 3-inch, and that works very well. Oh, my needles tried to escape. So we get the final thread through the needle, send it through the center of the frog, fold this over in half into a slip knot and put it on the dowel. So again we have going from left to right, small, medium, small, long, small, medium, small. Visit lisashea.com for more information, and thank you very much for watching this video. Have a wonderful day.